of Behemoths is almost completely spoiled, and it has proven to be one of the most divisive sets in a long time. Big splashy effects, bold top-down design, and a slew of new mechanics that wouldn't look out of place in an unset. Is Ikoria a healthy expansion of the game, or has Magic jumped the shark beast once and for all? Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast. We talk about all things Magic flavour, design and lore. My name is Andy Mann.
Hello, I'm Nathan Cancel.
And we are here today to talk about Ikoria proper. It has finally been spoiled. Today is actually the last day of spoilers, so there are still a couple trickling out. They've literally in the past hour released the tokens. Last week, Nathan, you said you thought the cat dinosaurs didn't look cute. Gavin Verhey promised you that they were going to look cute.
Oh, crap. Am I about to be proven wrong?
I think the cat tokens are pretty cute. If you look it up now, they've literally just been spoiled. As he's looking up those cat tokens to be proven wrong about how cute they are, we are going to be talking today about the spoilers. We're going to break down our Ikoria sort of discussions across 3 episodes. Our first episode, which is this one today, is going to be about the mechanics, so it's going to be our Mel episode. We're going to be looking mainly at the set proper, but of course the Commander sets have also been released at this time, so we'll probably end up talking about them because it's a little bit too confusing to keep splitting them up because they're so intrinsically linked. And then over our next 2 episodes, we'll be doing lore breakdowns. So next week, we'll be talking about the monsters of Ikoria and about the Ikoria sort of typography, the plane itself, and how it's split up. And then the week after that, we'll be talking about the humans of Ikoria, because at initial glance, you might have thought that the humans of Ikoria didn't actually play too much of a role, but reading through the ebook, the novel by Django Wexler, Son of Bond, and by looking at the cards themselves, humans actually are pretty much half of the set and have their own flavour and feeling as well. So I think they deserve their own episode. Nathan, have you seen the cat tokens?
Fuck me.
They're really cute, aren't they? Yeah.
Why didn't this artist do the regular artwork? Why? These are so much cooler than the weird reptilian changeling things. I
don't know. I don't know that it's not the same artist, so we'll have to look that up after the show. But yeah, the cat token is a lot cuter than the Gavi.
What is it? Brown with the one sec. I don't think it's the same. I think it's a different artist. Yeah, it's a different artist.
Oh, well, there we go then. Yes, the cat tokens are a lot cuter on the tokens themselves than they are on the artwork. Yeah.
And there's also cat birds in the regular set with wings, which is... Do you know what's really weird? Is that they try... I feel like, you know that core set where they had the... I can't remember what the card is now, and it's ginger cat, and it's got the wings, the enchantment that gives it wings.
Oh, yeah, I know the one, yeah.
I think it's... Was it from Ixalan? I'm pretty sure it's from Ixalan. I'm pretty sure it's jumping off the side of a boat.
Potentially, I don't quite know.
Yeah, anyway, so I feel that the internet absolutely pants over this, went absolutely crazy and wet themselves. And I feel like they've just gone, okay, right, just put wings on cats from now on, and we've got a set sold.
They definitely have leaned in
as well.
Yeah,
flying foxes as well. They knew. Did they listen to my Archon idea? And I just wanted foxes with wings, and they gave them.
There's a lot of foxes in this set, and a few of them do.
I know, right? I'm super happy.
I do feel like, in general, every set that comes out does seem to have more and more cats in it. Because they started off with the recent Ravnica sets, Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance. There was a peppering of cats. And obviously...
there was also cats in, what's it called beforehand as well? Ammon Cat.
Yeah. But I mean, that was a few years ago. And then they didn't really do many. And then for the past sort of 4 or 5 sets, every set's had at least 2 or 3 cats, which have been sort of very prominent and very cute, you know.
So, anyway, right, cool. You've derailed me on the bloody dinosaur cats because they are absolutely delightful.
Yeah,
these little fangs, honestly. Oh, so cute. I also really like looking at them. They've brought back the goblin token from Shadowmoor for the red green goblin.
Oh, have they? Is it the same one?
I believe so. Yeah. If you look at the artwork on it, the ears look very hobgoblin-y, very boggity.
Yeah, very. Yeah,
cool. So that's a cool little thing. Otherwise, the feather token looks really cool as well from the Commander set. Really cool.
I haven't seen any of those tokens yet. Any of the
they've released both sets of tokens. I got the wrong ones first time looking. Anyway, with a big capital A, shall we move on because we've got a lot to get through?
Yeah, sure. So we're looking at the mechanics today. We obviously will be touching on how they sort of express what's going on in the set flavorfully. But obviously, as we've discussed in many episodes, the Vorthos is both the Mel and the Vorthos, we think, and should be. So today we're doing the Mel. So we're going to be looking at mechanics. And Nathan, I believe that's more your realm than mine. So if you want to jump into it and take us away.
Okay, cool. Right. So Mutate, we talked about it a little bit last week. I got it slightly wrong in terms of how they stack and structure themselves in terms of one creature. Basically what you do is you get the creature on top, So the power and toughness of the creature on top, the ability box of the creature on top, with any of the ability boxes underneath addendumed onto it, basically. So I think I got it slightly wrong last week in my vernacular. So don't hate me. I literally had read it within like 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, this is a good chance. We've digested things a lot more now.
Yeah, exactly. I actually understand how the mechanic works a bit better now. I'm not just going, oh my god, look at all these new words and new colours and cats. Anyway, so basically, obviously, it kind of works a bit like bestow. And the thing I like about the mutate mechanic is that if you kill the creature you're mutating onto. No, you don't get the mutate trigger, but you still get the creature that you're putting into play, sitting in play. So you're not actually going to lose. If they do it in response, you're not actually going to lose anything. So you still will either guaranteedly keep your creature, or if you're mutating, get your mutate trigger before they kill the entire stack. Because of this, what's quite clever is that pretty much all but a couple of the mutate abilities have automatic card advantage put in with the trigger. So either they make your opponent sacrifice a creature, or discard a card, or you'll flip cards from the exile from the top of your library until you hit a non-land, all that kind of nonsense. Basically a way to recoup the card from your hand, either taking it away from your opponent, 2-for-1ing them or whatever, to make sure that you don't lose too much value when your thing dies. Obviously, all of the mutates have a mutate ability. They wouldn't just be a vanilla creature. Some of them are quite cool. There's a flash one, an octopus flash one, for example, as well as having like all the typical ones. Now, what I've noticed is outside of the mythics and a couple of others that have very, very good effects linked to their mutate trigger, all of the mutate costs are one less than the card itself costs normally, which to me makes it look as if what they want you to is they want you to mutate up the curve. They want you to start with one of your smaller creatures that might have one keyword ability like vigilance or whatever, or say the snake that's in the set that gives a creature -2/-2 whenever it mutates. You want to put one of these down first, and then the idea is I think they're trying to kind of push you towards looking at the card and going, yeah, I could just get a 5/4. And don't get me wrong, all of these creatures that have mutate abilities, you can mutate onto them to get those abilities as well. It depends if you obviously want to have your creature in play first, and then basically build it up quickly, or if you want to have the guaranteed creature in play and then risk maybe missing out on that mutate trigger if it gets killed before you can mutate onto it. So it does create a lot of decision trees. I think this is really, really important for a limited format to be diverse and interesting, is that you get a lot of choices at every point of what to do with your cards. Bestow was especially like this. There are a lot of times where you would want to get the 2-for-1 if you'd want to be able to get it bestowed onto the creatures, then when it dies, you've got the creature again anyway and all that nonsense. But sometimes you didn't really want to risk it. So you basically just play down the creature as it would normally. Or, for example, if you don't have another creature to mutate onto and you draw it late game, you can late game a mutate creature, play it, late game top deck your first mutate creature, then top deck another one, and suddenly you've got a monster again. So I do like the fact it mitigates its own inherent card disadvantage, which I think is something that people would worry about. And then also the fact that you've got this choice effect of whether or not you play your big creature with mutate ability first and you take little things onto it, or the other way around if you want to be aggressive or whatever. So yeah, so it's plenty of decision trees.
Do you think that this mutate effect is an effective representation of these creatures kind of sort of spontaneously evolving as they go? Like we saw in the trailer how if in the trailer Vivian downs a sort of insect worm thing, and then it mutates into a big helion with like lava spitting out of it sort of spontaneously. It's kind of upgraded. Do you think this is a good way of it being represented on the cardboard, or do you think it's maybe a bit too convoluted?
See, this is funny because I don't think mutate represents this as well as the keyword counter does. I think the keyword counter seems to work much better if you keep adding different weapons to your Swiss Army knife creature. Yeah. Whereas the mutate feels more like, if you ever played Yu-Gi-Oh! And you know the card polymerization, then this is exactly what this feels like. One way I think they could have mitigated this is by forcing you either to mutate under, or that you could only mutate under, or you could only mutate over. Right. So I think it'd be a bit weird. I think it's weird that you have your cat, your 2/2 cat, and then suddenly, instead of you adding another creature's abilities into the cat and the cat adding, and you can basically turn it the other way around and go, no, actually, this is the creature that I've got now, and the cat's abilities are now involved in that creature. I feel like you should have to stick with the base creature of whatever you first played, and you can add the abilities on underneath it, rather than having the choice of one or another. Because this is something we'll talk about in a little bit. I want to talk about in a little bit, but it's just going to create it. It's not necessarily, in my mind, it doesn't feel too confusing because I'm quite a seasoned player. But I can see how it could be confusing, and it might play better in person, but in my mind, it already feels a bit strange that you have to you've already got, as much as you've got decisions as whether you play the creature with its mutate cost or as a regular creature, you've now got a choice of what goes top, what goes bottom. And yeah, normally these decisions aren't particularly difficult to come to the quote unquote right option. The fact that you have an opportunity to make the wrong decision can obviously, it's a skill test for sure.
I mean, it definitely doesn't feel as intuitive to me. And I'm a relatively seasoned player by this point. I don't feel that this, thinking about it, I don't think this is as clean as you say the keyword counters, which it's odd. I actually really didn't think of them being sort of comparable. I thought they were very different sort of flavor things. But no, you are right. They are both different ways to kind of kit up your creature. And yeah, the keyword sort of tokens definitely feel more like you're picking and choosing what you're doing. But I suppose that this is, I think this is definitely for a limited environment rather than anything else. Although they have done commander cards with this mechanic on them. I think, it's going to be interesting. I think you're going to have to see it in front of you with the cardboard or on Arena or how you're playing it. But interesting for sure.
Yeah. Because I think in the trader, for example, I think that it almost looks like that weird insect creature gets like +1/+1 counters. Like that's what that in my brain, that's what +1/+1 counters feel like when you get like boom, 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 in anime where like muscles expand outside the clothing and the clothing rips and everything. That's +1/+1 counters to me. So I feel like I feel like it's, I like the idea of it, and I feel like it was their way of trying to blackboard or augment in a way that works within the rules. I just think that it is a bit, also the fact it's a bit in parasitic, the fact you have to, because I really want to put a Luna, we'll come on to a Luna when we get to choice cards later. I really want to put a Luna in my Maelstrom Wanderer deck, but you can't mutate off of the Cascade trigger, which is really annoying. So you kind of, obviously I don't mind having a 6/6 flying trample, but the whole point is the trigger only works if
I suppose they had to
take onto it.
They had to build into the mechanic itself. They had to build in limitations. Otherwise, essentially, what they're going, oh, by the way, from now on in this set, we have creatures that are just bonkers that you can make other creatures bonkers with, and there's no drawback to doing so. Do you know what I mean? So I think they had to build in these limitations.
No, I do agree. It's just a shame that if you want to play that one big splashy effect, unless it's mutating onto something else, then you have to play other mutate cards to be able to get it to work. So, I mean, also, it does have to cause you to jump through a few hoops. As you say, it's not just ubiquitously powerful. And I like the fact that another thing I like about the mutates, I'll talk about this again when we get onto the colours later, the fact that you hybrid the mutate cost to allow either you go full wedge and you can play it for its regular wedge cost, or you can dilute it down into either of the other wedges that you're playing, or even allied colour pairs that you're playing, or whatever. You can play
that's definitely a decision they've made from doing other particular sets where they
we want our big splashy mythics to be playable. And if you can't play for the actual normal cost, at least the mutate's easier, and the mutate's the ability they want you to be activating. They want you to be mutating these cards. This is why all of the mutates are slightly cheaper than the regular cost, apart from the mythics. And they're more expensive and easier to cast, so you can cast more easily in more decks that you play. I think that's the point. They always want their new mechanic to be played as much as possible. So they have to make it as viable and open and opportunistic as possible.
Cool. Well, that's music.
Okay, right. So we've got second on the road to is Companion. We've got over it a little bit since last week. I've calmed down massively. It's a good thing we're isolated. I did a lot of punching.
Talking about your excitement and then your disappointment at Lutri,
that card does not exist as far as I'm concerned. There are only 9 companions in this set. We've seen 8 of them. To be fair, my vehement anger has been quashed by the fact that we've now got a Fox companion, and the Fox companion looks so good. And there's no.
That's the Boros companion, right?
Yeah. There's no way they're banning it. If they ban it, I swear to God, I'm going to burn.
No. They won't cards. Do that. There's no way that they can do that in Command.
And it's also funny. Like the more Lutri was such a big thing for me because it was like only the 3rd companion we'd seen, and it was just. But now I look at it compared to the others, and it's like it's actually pretty shit compared to the other ones. The only reason it was so good is because our format dictated there was no opportunity cost to playing it.
I think the decision to ban it in EDH. I think you'd be very hard-pressed to find a reason why that's unreasonable for them to have done so. I think it was just a shock that they did it the day that it got spoiled. It's not even been released yet. And for some Commander players, for many Commander players, maybe not most, banning things before you have a chance to play them is almost against what EDH is about, which, that's their hill to die on, but I completely understand why they banned it out of EDH. Like, it was too much.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's funny also that considering its effect is one of the weaker effects, but the way the formatting of the card in our format, the way it worked, I'm 100% behind the ban. It's just that my frustration was out of an inability to be able to at least play the card a little bit first. And I don't like the fact when I only really play Commander extensively, I'm not going to have an opportunity to play with the card as much. But it's not as if there are, several thousand other cards I could be playing with. So
you don't have 25 years of Magic to pull from, right?
No, yeah, I'm sure I'll get over it. So, but yeah, so Companion's quite interesting. The only one so it's a 10 card cycle. They're all hybrid guild cards, basically. The only one we're missing is the blue-white one. When there was an article out a couple of weeks ago, basically talking from one of the designers, and they were saying that there was only one stipulation from the Companions that they weren't able to get to work in draft. Now, you can do some thinking about this if you go look through all of them, and some of them would seem more reasonable than others. I feel like the Boris one's quite interesting because it's activated ability, so maybe that might not be quite so easy. But the fact that each of them has a stipulation, so you can only play certain, basically a specific set of cards in your deck, whether it's even costed, odd costed, different name for each of them, different mana cost for each of them. One of them is really interesting. It's the Gruul one. In it, you can't play spells that have more than one of the same coloured mana in the mana cost.
Yeah.
So no double black, no triple anything. It's single colour only, which I think would be really cool in, say, like a Niv Mizzet Reborn deck. I think that'd be quite cool. Niv Mizzet Reborn with that as a companion because it already casts Niv Mizzet for you basically anyway. So yeah, I think the companions. What's really, really, really cool and something that I only really picked up today when I'm looking at it is that you basically get to bond your commander.
Yeah, flavorfully speaking, the companions are really good. The idea that if you have your, so in the world of Ikoria, and this is something we'll touch on, I think we'll probably touch on in both the monster and the humans episodes, but it's definitely more of a lore thing. In the world of Ikoria, there are humans and monsters that can share an intrinsic connection, and they are called bonders. So the idea on the cardboard is that if you have your commander, for example, if you're playing a non-commander format, then you as the player can have your bonded creature that will help you out in some big way. The drawback being that you have to make your deck work a certain way, but even that works flavorfully because the idea is that you yourself are working in tandem with how the creature has an effect. So I think that the dinosaur hippo one, that Garuda, that first got spoiled was that you had to have everything with 3 CMC or more, and then when you cast something with 3 CMC or more, you drew a card. I think it's something similar, but the idea is
I think it's when it comes in, you draw a card for each of that costs that or more.
Yeah, so you're working in tandem with your companion, which flavorfully is wonderful. I just think that this is the other way towards the mutate mechanic, maybe where the mutate mechanic's really splashy, but it doesn't quite hit what the flavor is. This is super flavorful. But I think the effect is people are either going to love it or hate it. And I think a lot of people are a bit sort of lukewarm on it, to be honest, and will probably not enjoy it when it's actually out in the wild. That's my prediction for it anyway.
I think this also works really well in Constructed. I think it's going to define archetypes a little bit. I think that they have done the stipulations just narrow enough that they're not going to it's not going to be too easy to sit into any one of them. I think people, when they can break them, I think there's a couple that could be not broken, but say capitalized on quite well and made into a synergistic deck that can actually be competitive. Yeah. I think that they're going to keep themselves quite distinct, which is what I think quite cool. What I don't want to see is that every deck's these 3 colors and it's either this is the cyborg companion or this is the cyborg companion. It's just companions versus companions. Obviously, also the opportunity cost in constructed formats like standard and that kind of thing is so much more important because you've got a limited sideboard, and this will take up sideboard slots. So I think there's deck building interest here, and I think that's what I think is quite good, and especially in when we already work with stipulations in Commander anyway. It's quite nice to see other formats have to kind of flex around it a little bit, and also. In Commander, it gives you another opportunity to personalize your decks, really stretch. And I'm really tempted to do a Lurrus companion with Ailey, which is going to mean I'm going to have to completely revamp my deck because there's a lot of permanents in there that cost 3 or 4 or whatever.
But it will afford you a chance to make an Ailey deck, which wouldn't be the same as half the other Ailey decks out there. Even if half Ailey players change their decks to have that companion with Ailey, the other half still won't. So it brings more diversity into the format. And I think that's great. And as we it's kind of one of my sort of, catchphrases when I talk to people about Magic now is that there have been 25, 26 years of Magic. If you can't afford the game design team to push into a new direction, even if you think it's bollocks, then you're in the wrong game. Go play chess.
Also, you've already got 25 years of that game then. Just go and play with that 25 years. Ignore the next year of Magic. You can ignore a year of Magic.
Oh yeah,
you can't
very
ignore
easily.
it in terms of it being played against you. But I mean, if you don't like a specific mechanic, as Ricky Gervais said in his stand-up, like if you don't like a comment, you just avoid the comment. If you don't like a card, just avoid it. It doesn't just because you don't like that card doesn't mean you suddenly don't like the game. You just didn't like a certain card. Like not every card is going to be liked by you or acceptable to your playstyle.
I have seen on Twitter, this is the first spoiler season that I've had an active Twitter account, and specifically for Magic as well. And I have seen more than one person, whether it's about mechanics or the book or something, say that they're going to quit Magic. And honestly, and if you're someone that's listening to this podcast and that's your reaction to almost anything that gets released in Magic outside of something that causes mass offense, like arguably what went on last year, but if it's something as benign as a mechanic in the game and you're thinking about quitting Magic, I would maybe have a conversation with yourself and find out what's going on, because there's something else going on with you right now.
Yeah, they need to have a conversation with someone else, because they clearly have too many conversations with themselves. There's no one to give them an inspired opinion.
Yeah, just gain a little bit of perspective. But yeah, Companion, I'm not sure on. I mean, yeah, I'm not really sure on Mutate on Companion either, to be honest with you. I think Flavorfully is wonderful. I will reserve judgment until I see people actually building decks with it in multiple formats.
Yeah, like the two that I think that are most to keep eye on, I think Laris of the Dream Den, it's the Orzhov one hybrid Orzhov.
Oh, that's a very cool card.
Yeah, so every permanent in your deck has to be converted mana cost 2 or less. So you can have instants or sorceries that are only mana cost. It's a 3/2 with lifelink, and during each of your turns, you may cast one permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard. I think that's a very strong, powerful card. Even just take away the companion text, and I think it's still a strong card.
Yeah.
And I also like the fact that you can't play it as your companion and with other copies in your deck because it costs 3, which I think is quite nice. It stops it from being too broken. Because I think immediately people are going to want to try and break this as much as possible. People can't help it. Magic players need to break things sometimes. It's just how we work. And I think it's the one that works nicely enough. I think it's a strong enough ability. I don't think it's too crazy powerful. The other one that I want to mention is the Boris one. Because I think the Boris one's very, very strong.
Yeah, go for it.
And the Boris one is Zerda, the Dawn Waker. And this is a elemental fox. Not that I'm biased in any way, shape, or form. For one Boris hybrid. Its companion stipulation is every permanent card, so you can have instants and sorceries of any variety. Every permanent card in your deck has to have an activated ability. Now, abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. They can't be reduced to less than 1, and then it has ability 1, tap, target creature can't block this turn. That last little bit of irrelevant. Oh, it's also on a 3/3 for what it's worth. That little last bit of text to make non-creature, target creature can't block this turn. I think that's the only reason they put that on there is just to make it feel like a Boris card.
But I think that's fine. My argument against it being irrelevant is that it's still keeping very much in the flavour of the card. But it's a Boros card, and the rest of the text is super interesting for red-white, and it's super interesting if it's a hybrid card, if we're going by the way that Wizards wants to do stuff as opposed to the Commander Rules Committee. If it's just a red card or just a white card, both those things are really interesting for those colours anyway. I think having the extra ability doesn't sync up with the rest of the card, which makes it feel a bit jarring, but the fact that it's there just shows that these creatures, especially if they're a legendary creature at rare with a new mechanic, they are more than just like a one-trick pony. Like, you can do more stuff. Yeah. You could put this into your Mardu or Boros aggro deck, of which we both have one in EDH, and it wouldn't feel so out of place. And in fact, it'd have a bit of extra benefit. The artwork for Zerda, by the way, is by Yes Bricing, and it's fucking beautiful. So check it out.
It is. This is my chase foil for the set, and I say that strongly because there's about 3 or 4 other cards in the set that I really want in foil as well. But this is my chase foil for the set. This is going to be Endless Horizons, like at level of pretty. And also, like, the thing I like about it is it works with equipment. It works with not only equip costs obviously get around it, which keeps it nice and Borisy. It also helps with cycling that's in the set. Makes your cycling cheaper. So it's got I think as soon as I saw it, I just thought, you just go mono artifacts and just go completely crazy doing stuff, domination effects and stuff like that. The fact that a Boros commander allows you to do this, that's me giving an applause to Wizards for actually doing a really good job with Boros over the last few years, because it's really, really encouraging.
There are a lot of white cards in the in this set and in the commander set that are actually very good and still feel very white, but give white the boosts that people have been begging for the past year. So I'm very excited. It's a very exciting time to be a Boros or white player, I think.
Exactly. Also, you combine Zerda with the Basalt Monolith, and there you go, infinite mana in white, and out of your command zone. Done.
Yeah,
sorted.
nice and
up
fair.
white players. You've got what you wanted.
Nice and fair.
Exactly. Right, good. So, the other thing that we have already talked about once today was the keyword counters. And this is ability granting counters that will give you, let's say, vigilance, trample, haste, blah, blah, blah. I think there's 10 in the regular set. And I think you get double strike out of the commander set.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure double strike isn't in the regular Ikoria set. I think that'd be a bit too busted. Basically, what I like about keyword counters, it seems like it's a nice middle ground between auras and end of turn effects. These are ways that you can kind of have your instants and sorceries give a permanent buff without it being too broken. So if giving, say, +2/+2 and trample to a creature is good, but obviously it's only temporary. And you can do, say, +1/+1 counter and trample in certain turn, but sometimes the trample is the important bit. And what I like is that, yes, it's going to feel a little bit clunky, and I'll talk about this right at the end of Alex. I think that this is a big issue, I think, with this set. Is going to be tracking. But what I like about it is it doesn't give you the feel bads of doubling down with an aura, but it also gives you the trickiness of having an instant. So kind of it gets both sides without being too strong of one or the other. Whilst I just think I like it, and I think this works better in terms of the mutating your creatures. I think this looks better, like giving something first strike and then adding a flying counter and then adding a hexproof counter. I think that to me feels more like mutation.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of Vorthosian, I think it works really well. It has some very clever applications in terms of gameplay as well, though. So I think, yeah, I like it a lot.
Do you think there's an element of feel bads with this keywords ability thing, where the idea of keywords being counters that you can put onto stuff kind of takes away from creatures that already have those abilities like already on the card? Because there's an element where you can give things that didn't have these abilities, you can then pump them up. But the idea that keywords is something that we've already always had. And when they said before the set dropped that we'd be getting all these different kinds of counters, and we thought, oh, they're going to be new words pumped into Magic, that actually the majority of these were just keywords that we already had, just in a slightly different way. Do you think there's an element of feel bads there, or do you think it's kind of valid for what they're trying to do?
Okay, right. So I think that's funny, because you started asking one question, you ended up asking a different one.
I guess they are kind of different. I think so. My point is it a bit of a feel bad that people are getting a new mechanic but with old wording, essentially?
Okay, right. So I think I think we already got they made fetch a thing in this set. What the hell are people complaining about?
Yes.
I think I think the feel bad of people expecting the set to be, oh, we're going to get 12 new different counter effects. Could you imagine a set where you've got 12 different types of charge counters, and every individual one does a different thing, working with different subsets of cards? The set's already complicated enough. People that wanted like 12 different new mechanics based on counters is utterly mental in my mind.
I think maybe. I just think it's because I'm tempted to get all 5 commander decks, but I will definitely be getting the Abzan one, which is the Cathril Warp Weaver one, which is the keywords commander. And so I'm still pumped about the mechanic and the way it works, because I'll be getting the commander deck for it and I'll be building it. But there is still a little bit of me that just kind of thinks, so I'm still working with the same stuff, essentially. I'm just kind of doing it in a slightly different way, which, I don't know, there's maybe a 1% of me that kind of thinks, I would have maybe liked a new word in there or something, or a new ability.
Wait, was that a whole one leading question of you going, do you think that there's a feel bad amongst people when all you were talking about was your own personal reaction?
Hey, well, my personal reaction, it would be very...
that was very well crafted, Andy, man.
It would be very egotistical for me to say that my reaction is so unique that no one else has that reaction as well.
No, of course not. You are a champion of your people, Andy. You are a champion.
I'm just one of the guys, all right? I'm just one of the lads. I'm just asking questions.
So it's funny because I was going to answer what I thought your initial question was going to be oppositely, and that was, do you think there's a feel bad like the creature that already had vigilance, so now just any old creature can have a vigilance counter put on them?
Oh, that is rolled in there.
Yeah, so I think that the way that works is like, does your 1/1 does your 3/3 feel bad if you put 2 +1/+1 counters on your 1/1?
What, actually, literally in the game?
You know, it's not as if like, I feel sorry for my 3/3 because I've just got a 1/1 I can put loads of counters on. It might as well be a 10/10. Stupid 3/3. I think the whole point is that like there are certain creatures that inherently have it, and if anything, they are more vigilant. And this is funny with you're saying this, because we're going to get into the more vigilance and the more menace in a little bit. But I think the whole point is that that this is allowing your creatures to adapt to it. And I think it does. I can see why people would be annoyed about it, but I think this is a really clever way to allow flexibility of creatures whilst also upping. It's not upping the complexity, because these are all words that we already know. What it is going to do, and this is my big strike against this mechanic, is that I think tracking and bookkeeping in the game is going to be a nightmare.
No, I agree.
Not now, but imagine, and this is a really good point that came up. I can't remember if it was on Reddit or whatever. Obviously, I've been all over spoiler season. What someone pointed out was really smart idea, was that if give it in 5 years, 10 years time, I struggle enough as it is with cards that I've got trying to find the tokens that I need to find, because it's been 10 years since I've had that card, and now you can't get that token anymore. Like, do you have any idea how hard it is to get Godsire tokens? It's bloody impossible. So imagine in 10 years time where you have to then fumble around for a flying counter because you didn't happen to have your flight, because there's 10 new things that you have to have different items for. And yeah, okay, you might only add add a flying counter card to your flying deck or whatever. But if you add, like, say, a bunch of these to a proliferate deck, or say my Peer and Toothy deck, if I add a load of those into this, a load of different ones that add Intimidate or all that nonsense, it starts getting super complicated. Because not only have I got a flying counter and a vigilance counter, it's also got 2+1/+1 counters. It's probably got a fate counter on it somewhere or another. You know, like, at that point, I feel like that and the mutate part is, I think, and this is something we mentioned, I think we've mentioned before, is that these are all really easy to track in Arena.
Yes.
They're very difficult to track in paper.
Yeah, there's that crystal golem.
If someone knocks over your table, how do you remember what's on everything?
Yeah, there's a crystal golem or something very similar, which is you have to roll d10s for. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and also that's directly taken from an unstable card as well, where you basically, the adaptive, I can't remember what it was called, but it was from the unstable set. You basically had to say a keyword that hadn't been said yet. And you add that keyword to it. And if you said one that's already been said, you remove all of the keywords from it. And it's basically that card, but in a real set. And it's just, again, I don't mind them leaning into how strong Arena is as a format. I think it's fine, but I think that they need to be careful that they're not doing too much to we play Commander, we used to complicated situations, but again, I think we mentioned this last week as well, it's just going to add that extra layer of complexity, which I don't think is ultimately going to be worth it unless they continue this trend, in which case, if they do, they're going to have to come up with better than punch outs. I'm sorry, Wizards.
There are quite a few. There are a few content creators out there that are already starting to 3D print their own custom.
Honestly, yeah. This 3D printing malarkey, this is amazing for board games and stuff like that. Like, holy nonsense. Again, that's the second applause for the day. Good job, 3D printers, for making our games easier to play.
All right.
In terms of keyword.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Moving on to the keyword lords. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what I like, there are two different parts that I like about this a lot. The fact that you can do this as there's a lot of cycling triggers in the set, of where you'll have, say, a 40 with first strike. You can cycle it for 2 and a red, and when you cycle it, you put a first strike counter on a creature you control. Now that I really like. One, because it means that cycling doesn't feel quite so just I just cycle a card, replace it, fine, whatever. But you also can use this as a combat trick. So if in the middle of combat you cycle, draw a card, and you give this creature first strike. I mean, basically any of these cycling abilities basically read as cantrip keyword abilities, but the cantrip. Sorry, the keyword ability is permanent. It's not like just +1/+1 first strike until end of turn, draw a card, which is already a pretty okay card. But you now also get the permanence on it as well, which is very good. In certain situations, adding first strike instant speed to then be able to attack with your big creature the next turn, that's game breaking. That's it. That's the game over. So I think that's very, very clever. The fact they managed to put these counters in on cycling cards, and these are kinds of things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do with keywords as easily. And I think that the counter thing, once you get used to it, will work really nicely. I think it's very potent, especially if you look at, say, cards like Grim Dancer. Grim Dancer is one of my the favorite cards from the set, in terms of it's the Vampire Nighthawk, Vampire Counter Nighthawk. I can't remember. There's a name for it already out there. And it's 1 black for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you choose 2 different types of counter from among Menace, Death Touch, and Lifelink, and you add them onto it. Build your own Nighthawk, basically. Which is a very clever card. And I like it, and this is what I like, the fact that you can be modal with spells as well, and the fact that because it has that permanence, I think it's quite nice. And the Ozolith is a card that's been printed as well, that allows you to move counters around as your creatures die and all that nonsense. So I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to mess around with things. There are some counter shenanigans that happened with Lorwyn as well, and Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. There's some counter shenanigans you can get away with. So I think it offers up the opportunity to mess around with a lot of things. And they haven't gone for any of the obnoxious ones, really. Like, Double Strike's only available at the Commander product. There's only one creature so far that can do a hexproof counter, and it's a 6 mana choice of flyer or hexproof. So those are 2 quite powerful counters. and they've put them on a 6-drop. So I think they've balanced the set quite well. I think the play design team, especially in limited formats, have been very clever, and I think they're quite good at making sure things aren't too busted. So I have a lot of faith that I think that it will work nicely. I just think it will work a lot better on Arena, which I think is a shame. It's a shame, but it also leads me nicely into my next little category, and that's being able to add keywords to creatures really helps when we have a cycle of keyword lords, which are very interesting. Now, these keyword lords are basically a cycle that basically turn your keyword into a super keyword. There's only 5 of them thus far. I think we're only going to get 5 of them. They're all allied pair hybrids. This is to help support the format of the structure of the format in terms of colours. Basically, you've got a 2/2 with flying that makes all other all flying creatures have to pay an additional 2 to target them if you're an opponent. So it gives it. I think we had one in Ravnica that did the same thing, but it gives it to all of your flying creatures. You've got Cunning Nightbonder, which is a 2-drop Dimir hybrid for a 2/2 with flash. Other spells with flash cost 1 less and can't be countered. So not only are they flashy, they're even flashier. Your menace creatures now have to be blocked by 3 or more creatures.
Ooh.
Your vigilant creatures, you now gain a life at the end of turn for each creature with vigilance that you control. So it allows you to gain even more life on the back of the fact that they're not even tapped anymore. Like, so you're attacking with all these creatures, they're there to block, and you're gaining life every turn. That's really annoying. And then trample gets super trample. Whenever a creature with trample, and they can assign their combat damage as if they weren't blocked. So no matter extra damage getting over, no, all the damage is getting through. So what I like with this set is the fact that you have the opportunity to give instant speed. I mean, Flash is, I think, the only one didn't get a counter, which is a shame for the Cunning Nightbonder. But I think that's also one of the more broken ones. But the fact that you can do this instant speed on creatures, say giving a flying counter to a creature to make him, you have to pay 2 more to target it. That's basically a counter spell. The menace one, if you're adding menace to something and then having to make it be blocked by at least 3 or more creatures, if you do that before combat, again, a fantastic ability, and allows you to get through unblocked. Like these are the kinds of things that, and don't get me wrong, they're all uncommon, so they're not going to be rife. But the fact that they are adding this support into the mechanics, whilst also allowing you to pick and choose which of your creatures have that mechanic, means you don't have to worry about, I didn't draft enough creatures with menace. Because it's not only creatures with menace in the set, there's also opportunity for you to add the counters onto your creatures to get the menace as well. So it does bump them up. And any of these creatures by themselves, maybe apart from the Dimir one, are all by themselves pretty decent.
Yeah.
So the fact that you get keyword lords is super fun. The worst thing about the keyword lords is, though, there's not just an uncommon cycle. No, Andy Man. There's also a rare cycle of keyword lords. Which to me is absolutely bonkers. So basically, I'm just going to only list one of them because otherwise we'll be here all day. But the Labyrinth Raptor, for example, is the Menace one. So it's red and the black for a 2/2 with Menace. Whenever a creature you control with Menace becomes blocked, defending player sacrifices a creature blocking it. Red-black, creatures you control with Menace get +1/+0 until end of turn. So not only do you have to block with 2 creatures to be able to block anything, one of them's going to get sacrificed before they even deal damage, so you need to make sure you block with 2 creatures that can kill it. If you have the uncommon lord with this lord, you have to block with 3 creatures, and you have to sacrifice one of them, making sure those 2 creatures don't also die. Otherwise, you're getting 3 for 1 per creature. That's mental. And the other thing I like about this is all of the rare ones are beasts and cats and nightmares. They're the monsters. All of the uncommon ones are humans. So you can, in your own limited format, if you get the rare and the uncommon, not only is your deck going to be bonkers if you get any more of the same keywords in them, but together they are a bonded pair.
That's super flavorful.
This set, flavorfully wise, I don't have enough hands to chef kiss this set. Okay. It's not possible.
I think they've really knocked it out of the park. I think they've obviously tried to go ham with the mechanics to try and fit the flavor of what's going on, and I think for the most part they've done a fantastic job.
So this leads. So basically, the way I looked at this is the fact that all of these are allied colours. The fact that in a wedge set, every enemy pair is going to be represented by 2 different wedges. What I like is the fact they've put these uncommon cycles. They've put them on a different axis, so that's not based on the archetypes of each of the wedges as such, because they're all a little bit looser. But the fact that they give support to the ally colour when your enemy colours are supported by 2 of the different wedges, your ally colours are now supported by an uncommon and a rare that allows you to look at the keyword abilities of trample, vigilance, whatever, instead of having to look at the rest of the text and the rest of the deck. That it basically allows each deck to run as a hyper combat deck. because all of them are combat based. You've got Trample, Vigilance, Menace, Flash less so. The Flash one, Dimmer's always got a bug the trend, really, hasn't it? So I mean, fuck Dimmer. It's ruining my point. But the rest of them all work within combat, which I think is quite important to allow you to basically not have to worry about doing all these value engines. Just turn everything sideways, because it's probably going to work out quite all right for you.
Yeah.
And I quite like limited formats where that works, because I like playing aggressive. But that's me. But yeah, moving from 2 colours to 3 colours. We haven't really talked about the fact of the wedginess of the set, but it is a wedge set.
Yes.
That means that all 5 of the different wedges from Tarkir are represented. We have Savai being the Mardu wedge, Ketria being the Tima, Indartha being the Abzan, Raugrin being the Jeskai, and Zagoth being Sultai.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously these are all supported. I mean, they're supporting the fact that they all have, we have enough artifact mana kind of in the set to support-ish. From what we can see so far, support-ish a three color format. By that, what I mean is I think this is probably going to look more like a 2-color with splash set, rather than full 3-color set.
There's plenty of mana fixing going on with rocks and various different things that do similar stuff.
So we've got the crystals, didn't we? What they call the crystals, which all not only cycle themselves, but also tap for 1 of any of the 3 colors for 3 mana. The same as the monoliths, not monoliths, Grixis, monoliths. I think it was monoliths. Monoliths, anyway, from Alara, but they also cycle, so they're giving you a bit of extra utility there. Each of the wedges has its own apex predator. We kind of spoke to that a little bit about that last week. What's your favourite, Andy?
My favourite is the Sultai one.
Really?
Yeah. I really like it.
For vision, for mechanic?
So it's Brokos, Apex of Forever. So it's 2 black, green, blue. And it's a Nightmare Beast Elemental, 6/6. It has Mutate for 2 generic, a Dimir hybrid, green. If you cast the spell for its mutate cost, blah, 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 blah. And its mutate thing is you may cast Brokos, Apex of Forever, from your graveyard using its mutate ability, and it also has Trample as well. The reason I like this, I mean, the artwork is great, but the reason I like this is that it's actually for mutate, which is already kind of a complicated mechanic on the look of it. It's actually a really simple mutate ability, and the fact that you can, if you have this as your commander, or if this is your kind of bomb in limited, then you can keep bringing it back. And I like the idea that this is mutating because it's the Sultai colors, and because it's an elemental, the fact that it's never necessarily going to die. You mutate this, you put it back on top of whatever other pile of mutate things you have, and suddenly you have this Broko creature again, but it's that in addition to everything else. I think it's really designed, and I really like it. I like the simplicity of it in a complicated mechanic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. So I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think Brokos is known. Not only is it does it look like the least broken, but also in lore, I think it's the oldest living creature that people know about. Like it outdates even the other apex predators, I think. So obviously, being apex of forever, whatever, that would make a lot of sense. So I mean, the apex predator is obviously very, very cool. They also define each wedge has its own denizen. I think in terms of looking at the format, there aren't that many triple color cards, especially not even a common or uncommon. So I think they're deliberately trying to push. You will likely splash maybe a couple of big powerful spells, but they're not pushing the same way with Khan's was to have 3 colors all the way through down, especially because Khan's got away with it with having morph creatures, where every single deck had colorless 3 mana 2/2s, in the same way that this set has cycling in it, so it allows you to kind of cycle and smoothen out your draws in the early few turns. I don't think it's encouraging you to play full 3 colors. There is an ultimatum cycle, however, that's now coming, which is great, finishing off a cycle. I think this is the cycle that people that Mary said that everyone's been waiting 10 years for us to finish, because it was about 10 years ago where Alara came out, and that's where you got Clarion, Violent, Titanic, Brilliant, and Cruel. There we go. I missed out the one I actually played. There we go. I got them all. So if you look at some of the ultimatums, we're only missing 1 at the moment. I think we're missing the Teema one, which is really annoying because I'm a Maelstrom Wanderer player, and it's the 7 mana going to do something crazy in Teema Colours cards, so I'm literally salivating. But if you look at the power level of them compared to the last one, the Violent Ultimatum, I think, was the Gruul one, and that was just to destroy 3 target permanents.
Yes.
Whereas Ruinous Ultimatum, which is the Mardu one, destroys all non-land permanents your opponents control.
Yeah, power creep's a thing, apparently.
Big Plague Wind, big boy Plague Winds. Ingarrick's Wake, but cheaper. I mean, obviously, this is more expensive. It's harder to cast, so it's red, white, black. And if you've not experienced cool looking casting costs before, then yeah, your eyes really do go yum. Eat that up, thank you. So what I think, the reason I bring them up is because I don't think that these are supposed to be played unlimited. I think that they're likely, the reason they put them at such an obnoxious cost is something for you to aspire to in standard formats. But I think if you cast these in limited, I think you're doing very well for yourself.
Oh yeah, you probably deserve a bit of a clap, yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're not playing the green ones. Like the green does have some colour fixing in the set. So if you're playing Emergent or Eerie Ultimatum or the eventual Team of One, a bit more reasonable. Playing Ruinous or I think it's Brilliant, isn't it? I can't remember what it's called now off the top of my head. The Jessica one, Immaculate. Yeah, if you're paying either of those, yeah, good luck. I mean, not only the reason, obviously, that these cost so ridiculous amounts of mana is because they do win the game when they get resolved in typical formats. But also, it's a nice pat on the back to us that play Commander, going, "Hey, do you want something utterly horrendously broken, which you don't mind casting? Yeah, here, have 5 of them. Enjoy." So yeah, I think they're really the reason I like having a wedge set is not only does it push. I've got 4 out of the 5 wedges as commander decks, so it gives me a lot of fuel to play around with. It allows them to push the envelope on the power of cards. You can make ultimatums, the most broken, busted, I win the game cards, because they do cost so much, and I think they were able to really push them. And I think it's quite nice that they're at rare as well. They're not a mythic, so they're not going to be too expensive. But yeah, I definitely think that these are for Commander, not for limited. I think this is an indication of where the worst players in Magic are just going to sit there and go, I definitely want to just play Immaculate Ultimatum. That's the only thing I care about doing out of my draft experience. And they're not. They might not be disappointed, but I imagine most times out of 10 they will be disappointed at not being able to cast their 7-drop sorcery. Because of that, I think they then did a cycle of triple color cards that were viable in limited, and that's the enchantment cycle. Now we've only seen 3 of them, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get a full cycle out of them. That's Offspring's Revenge is the Mardu one. It's 2 red, white, black for an enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, exile red, white, or black creature from your graveyard. Create a token copy of it that's a 1/1 with haste, and it gains haste until end of turn. So it's another way to like rebuy your stuff. Song of Creation, which is the team of 1 green, blue, red, allows you to pay an additional land each turn. Whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. And that's it. That's the rest of the number. And at the end of your turn, discard your hand. Which, yeah, okay, is a bit of a downside. But I mean, what I like about these is it's kind of giving you a push on what it's telling you what the wedge is doing. The problem with wedges is that wedges tend to become a bit more diluted. I mean, all of the guilds have very distinct identities, but the wedges, not so much. And as much as, Offspring's Revenge seems to combine sacrificing with tokens that aristocrats fill. Song of Creation does the same thing, of where you're playing more lands, playing more spells, but you've got the red bit of it. Oh, okay, well, you have to discard your hand each time.
Sure. I mean, my favourite cards in the Team Wedge and the Abzan Wedge are those enchantments.
Really?
Yeah, Abzan has Death's Oasis.
Have a talk about that.
Yeah, which is whenever a non-token creature you can control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library in your graveyard, then return a creature card with a lesser converted mana cost than that creature that died from your graveyard to your hand. So it's nice recycling, which is what Golgari is all about. And then pay 1 generic, sacrifice Death's Oasis, you gain life equal to the greatest converted mana cost amongst creatures you control, which again is a nice sort of like Orzhov or white thing. So it's kind of combining all those Abzani colours. But my favourite, and this might be one of my favourite cards in the set, certainly my favourite artwork by Noah Bradley, is Song of Creation, which is 1 green, blue, red, which is the Teamer enchantment. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards, and at the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. So it's got everything firing on. It's got the creation and the spell slinging of all these different colours, because green, Simic, I suppose, and then red and blue love doing that. It's got the card draw from all these different things, but it's also got the red element of you discarding your hand. So it's like it's just pure creation, and it's for a card called Song of Creation. I think it fires on all levels. I don't quite know what's going on in the artwork. It certainly doesn't seem to fit flavor.
I'm not. We need to ask Noah. I'm going to message him on Reddit when he posts it.
Well, I think
he always posts his artwork especially when he did all of the legendary sorceries. He always posts his artwork up to Reddit and has a bit of discussion. I'm gonna query exactly what his artwork is. This is, by the way, one of the other cards that I was it's in my like top 10 for foil out of foil treatment, because it is stunning. And it's slipping nicely into Maelstrom Wanderer, because I fancy drawing 20 cards a turn. Yes, thank you. That'd be lovely.
But it's funny that you mentioned this enchantment cycle, because in a set full of creatures, 2 of my favourite cards are the enchantments.
Yeah, see, I don't care about the. I mean, the funny thing is, I'm a bit of an aesthetic whore when it comes to cards. Like, if you put a load of colours on it, or you put a nice little flare on it, like all of the companions jump out at me because they have a fusion of colours. I said again, the treatment they do on the banner for the legendary hybrid cards is amazing. Also, if you put 3 colours on a card, I don't know why my brain just, again, they make the cards yellow. Nathan likes them. That just happens. I can't change my biology. And yeah, these just, for some reason, I think the fact they've done themselves justice as well. All of the cards do something interesting. Like Death's Oasis, people are like, why does it have the ability to gain life at the bottom? Like, what you don't notice is not only is it good life gain, sacrifice, blah, 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 but it's not a choice, the first ability. So if someone wraths you, you can mill out. Whereas if you sacrifice in response, you don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were built to be competitively viable. And I get that people, and that's what I like about it. It does feel like, because I thought the Offspring's Revenge was shit. I was like, oh, I'm not going to play this in my Mardu deck. Why don't I play this in my Mardu deck? Until I realised it allows me to put my commanders into my graveyard and then make token copies of them and then replay them and then be able to replay them again after the tokens have died. So, I mean, so basically that was me basically poo-pooing a card because it didn't fit into my niche of what I want for my Mardu deck, and then realised I can flex my Mardu deck around the card, so it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
So what I think is interesting, though, is looking at this is, yes, this is a wedge set, but there is a hell of a lot of push, I think, towards being able to play 2 colours comfortably, 3 colours with enough fixing. And again, we haven't seen all of the commons, so I think we've still got a little bit to come out as well. But I think the whole point is that the sets, especially with hybrid, I think they've balanced it very nicely to be able to play you're not going to be able to play everything. And if you do try and play everything, you're going to be punished for being a little bit greedy. And I think that's fair. The thing of this set is that it really rewards greed sometimes, because some of the effects you're going to get are going to be bonkers. The other ones are so inherently synergistic, you kind of need to go all in on some strategies. The fact that, so basically there's an uncommon the uncommon archetype cycle is what I like to call it. It's basically, they'll do, usually, especially in limited formats, core sets, they'll have a uncommon from each two color combination that kind of tells you what that color combination is supposed to be doing. From the allied colors, we've obviously seen all of the different keyword abilities. That keyword Lord cycle is the allied cycle of uncommon archetype signifiers. The enemy ones are funny because you don't have 1 cycle, you've got 3 cycles. Now, if you weight that compared to the 1 cycle of uncommons that are for the allied cycle, it shows that they are trying to push you towards playing enemy color combinations, because specifically Orzhov is both present in Mardu colors and it's also present in Abzan colors. So they want you to be able to play, basically, instead of the 5 different colors of Magic, you're playing 5 different enemy archetypes, but there's support for the other one if you want to go off brand and try and be flexible. And it's funny because you get basically a cycle of mutates. So each of them have a mutate card that's like one of each of its colors, and then it all has like generic effects. There's also then another say what I call the flagship uncommon that doesn't have mutate. The Simic one does, which denotes to me that not only is the Simic mechanic more likely to be a little bit more mutatey, I think red-white's going to do the cycling trigger thing more, whereas I think Sultai colors are going to do the more mutate thing. We'll see where the final numbers end up, even though all colors have mutate at the moment. We'll see how it's weighted by the end. So there's also a flagship cycle. Basically, they have cycling for Boros, non-creatures for Izzet, shockingly, graveyard recursion for black-green, shockingly, humans / tokens, so it's going to be human support as well as token support, kind of aristocracy for the Orzhov pair. Sure. And then top of library / mutate for the Simic one. Now, the reason I say this is because it has 2 mutate uncommons, which makes me feel like, again, the mutate side is going to be quite strong for the Simic colours. But I also think that they're going to have a bit of top of deck manipulation, because a lot of the Teamer cards do things like exile off the top of your library until you hit a permanent, things like that. So I think there's going to be a bit of top of deck nonsense as well in the blue-green guild. So these clearly show kind of what the different archetypes across are. But in general, I think that they also have like a non-creature cycle for the enemy pair. So I think that they're kind of pushing you towards playing two colors and then splashing an extra color on top.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. And then you have
to see about how your draft goes accordingly. Because you might do the thing of where you open up Kihira, the orphan guard, which is one of the companions, and then you just go, well, I only want cats, elementals, nightmares, and that sets your limitation for your draft. You might open the rare that plays with menace creatures, so for the rest of the draft you go specifically for menace creatures. You might open up your cycling cards, you go specifically for cycling. The fact they give you all these different options to go for really shoehorn strategies, but there are so many different types of strategies that all have a little bit of overlap. It denotes a really clever set to me in terms of mechanical synergy, as well as how it feels just as you're playing it as well. Like, I feel like a lot of the cards are going to do a lot of things with each other, and I think that the set has a lot of depth.
Yeah, so do I.
Maybe too much depth, but I guess let's see.
Well, we'll have to see. It's better to have too much than too little.
Indeed. Right, so before we move on quickly to Commander, because we have to fit that in as well, standouts. Have you got some standouts for the set?
Yeah, so other than my two enchantments that I said earlier on, I really like the Mythos cycle, which I think you do as well.
Yeah, okay. I don't have to mention them then. That's fantastic. Cool.
Yeah. So we'll just. So I mean, if I was to read, I've got Mythos of Snapdax. So each one of this Mythos cycle is a sorcery, which is based around one of the apex creatures that are also in the set, and they all are monocolored cards or have a monocolored casting cost at the top, but then get an extra effect if you add in the other two colors of its wedge. So, for example, Mythos of Snapdax being the Mardu one, is 2 white, and then each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from amongst the non-land permanents they control, and sacrifices the rest. Which is what's the Gideon card that has that on it? Tragic Arrogance?
Tragic Arrogance.
Yeah, so it's essentially Tragic Arrogance. But then if a red and a black was spent to cast this spell, so in the 2 generic mana slot, you choose the permanents for each player instead. So again, it's allowing you to play this card in 2-color strategies or 1-color strategy, but it's also giving the option, if you wanted to go for the full wedge, to get that extra super flavorful effect of adding in that Rakdos element to your white board weight. Then it allows you to do so. And they all have this similar kind of thing. The artwork as well is by Seb McKinnon on all of these. And they're done like cave paintings. So it's kind of like the tales of these creatures of old that are coming to destroy the human realms. And they all have a similar sort of feel. And they're pretty amazing, I think. I think they're very flavorful. And they're very, very good.
Yeah, the only one we're missing again is the Teamer one at the moment. We haven't got the Teamer one. We've seen all of the other ones. And they all have very, very cool effects. I also like the fact that is, in the same way we got the sagas in Theros, I like the fact that we get not only the creatures themselves in the set, but the mythos around them as well.
Yeah, which is very cool.
It gives them a bit more gravity. Yeah, cool. Yeah, carry on. Have you got any other spices?
Well, actually, I mean, to be honest with you, other than the enchantments and the mythos one, the only other one I suppose I should have mentioned, we haven't really talked about the planeswalkers, and I think they probably deserve a discussion at some point. But I will just say that there is a Jeskai-coloured Narset planeswalker in this set.
Tick that one off of my list as well.
Oh, is that on your list as well? Well, there we go. Well, let's talk about it then.
Of course, it's a Jeskai card. Of course, it's on my list.
So obviously, she was a Jeskai creature, and that was in her colour, and she's from obviously Tarkir, where Jeskai Wedge has a lot of relevance. And then her 2 Planeswalker cards are Azorius and just mono blue. So the fact that she's gone back into being Jeskai and that her abilities reflect this as well, I think is fantastic. It seems a lot more aggressive than the other 2 Narsets, which shows that red ability is kind of coming in as well, but still is all around sort of spell slinging and what have you. I think her -2, which is draw a card, then you may discard a card. When you discard a non-land card this way, Narset of the Ancient Way, which is her name, deals
damage. Not old, Andy, jeez.
Deals damage equal to the card's converted mana cost to target creature or planeswalker. So again, adding that red into the spell slinger of you discarding cards, that kind of looting thing, is very, very cool. And in general, very, very strong Narset card, I think.
Yeah. Also, the ultimate's only -6, and she starts at 4, so you can get that off like after 2 turns.
She does. The +1 is you gain 2 life, and you add blue, red, or white. Spend this mana only to cast non-creature spell. So she's definitely going to be one to watch. You don't want her to tick up too much, and ticking up doesn't involve an effect which is so bonkers that it catches people's attention. It's just ramping. So it's it's definitely something that you're going to have to be careful with. And I think for our set, it's very cool.
Yeah, she's going to cut Kakara as soon as I can possibly fit her in. Okay, cool. So mine are a little bit more around and about. So I deliberately didn't choose wedgie ones because I wanted you to choose the wedgie ones, and we haven't actually got that many crazy wedgie cards that we didn't already talk about in terms of ultimatums and the enchantment cycle and blah blah blah, that kind of thing. sticking with crazy enchantments, one thing that I really like about this set is that they've done quite a lot of top-down designs. My first two are very top-downy designs. One of them is 100% meme card, and having looked at the token, is like 1000% meme card, and that's Shark Typhoon.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Which is a 6-mana enchantment for 5 and a blue. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. So it's a bit like metallurgic summonings in that regard. You can cycle it for X1 and a blue. When you do cycle it, if for whatever the X cost you paid, you get an XX blue shark creature token with flying, as well as discarding and drawing a card for the cyclability. The reason I like this is because they made Sharknado a fucking magic card, Andy.
Yeah,
they made Sharknado happen, and it's good. And I want to play it in things, and I don't hate it. It's surprisingly
you don't hate
acceptable.
This card's gotten a lot of flack online.
I know.
Some people really don't.
This is the kind of thing that I imagine people quit over, and I'm like, yeah, all right, fair enough. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, yes and no. It definitely feels like they've taken silver-boarded ideals and blackboarded them, which I think for one set every few, like, fuck it, why not? Let them do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they cut. Since I think we're going to go back to really sad Zendikar, where everything's already dead, and we're trying to get daisies to grow. And why won't they grow? Why won't the children stop crying? And then straight after, what I think is going to be a set of Teferi trying to get Zalfir to phase back, and I think he's probably going to fail. So I think we're going to have a couple of really sad sets. So I think it's quite nice. They went, yeah, big splashy Sharknado. We made Sharknado a card. Fuck the haters.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's amazing. And the fact is, it works top down as a card as well, which is great for me. The next top down, which I think works really well, is Kogla, or Kogla, the Titan Ape. Now, this is a 3 green for a 7/6 legendary creature ape. Now, with all of the stuff that came out around Godzilla, because Wizards don't mind doing collaborations with Toho do not have the rights to King Kong. That did not stop Wizards going, we're putting King Kong in the set anyway, screw all of you.
Oh, nice.
And when I say top down, this is why it's top down, because when it enters the battlefield, it fights up to one target creature you don't control. Fine, Kong's angry. Cool, get it. When it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. So that's it tearing up one of those buildings it's climbing up, right? The big one and a green, return target human you control to its owner's hand to give indestructibility to Kogla, or whatever you call him. But that's the human that he's protecting. Like, they just put Kong on a card, and the thing is, you can do some silly things with it, with things like Borderland Ranger to constantly bounce that back and forward. There's a couple of others that you can do as well. This to me is not only a really, this is like a nice strong mono green commander that does a lot of good things. The only thing is, people complain that it's a bit too much of a bend for it to fight when it enters the battlefield, because it's a bit too much like a Ravenous Chupacabra. And when it's a 6 mana 7/6, I kind of agree a little bit. There's another card that we'll talk about. There's another card we'll talk about this. We probably should talk about it now, actually, and that's the green card, fight card, where you reveal a creature from your hand and it deals damage equal to that creature's power, but you don't have to have the creature in play. Now, that's pissing people off, because why should green get removal when the creature's not in play, when normally removal and card draw is based on the things that they have in play permanently?
That I see a point too, yeah.
Yeah, see, Kogla, I don't mind him fighting when he comes in. He's a big angry ape, fair enough, and he costs you 3 green mana in a multicolored set. That's the other thing not to forget. If you've got a card that costs, say, 3 black, and you're playing in a wedge set, that's just as difficult to play as a wedge card in a monocolor set. So it's going to be not as difficult to play Kogla as I'm making out, because he's just green. And also, if you open this card and you're not playing green, you're an idiot, because it's powerful. But I like the fact that it's top down all the way through.
Sure.
In terms of actual power, I've only got two that I kind of want to talk about, just because I think one of them is basically the next Tarmogoyf, and the other one's something that strokes me in all kinds of nice ways. Fiend Artisan is the Tarmogoyf kind of watch out card, I think. This is one of the ones to watch, I think, for Modern. I think it's going to be very strong. It's hybrid Golgari, so that's 2. For a 1/1. It gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard, similar to White of Precinct 6 or Boneyard Worm or something like that. But you can pay X and a Golgari hybrid, tap, sacrifice another creature to search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it onto the battlefield. So it's a variable birthing pod-esque effect, and you don't have to go one higher. It's basically however much mana you put in, and you get something that costs less. The thing that I think is silly powerful about this is not only is it a 2 mana 5/5 potentially, because it gets +1/+1 for each creature in your graveyard, it can search for another one of itself and put it directly onto the battlefield as you try to remove it.
Very strong.
That's very strong in my mind. So I think that's one to watch out for. The other card that I really like is Rai. I think her name's Rai. I don't know what the vernacular of the set is, but I don't think it's Riel. Riel the Everwise, but I don't know because it's
yes, the Is It one.
Rielle. So I'm not sure. I don't think it's like Spanish where you don't pronounce the L's and things, but I mean it's probably Riel to be fair.
I read it as
like
Riel.
It's like the whole Anya thing where everyone calls it Angie, and apparently Angie's right, even though please it makes me throw up in my mouth. It's Anya for God's sake.
Cool. Yeah, Riel.
Yeah, Riel. One blue red for a 0/3. It gets +1/+0 for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard. Whenever you discard one or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. I play Nakuza. This is going to do some horrible, horrible things to people. That is all.
You could choose not to play Nakuza.
No, I've got a Nakuza deck. I can't not play Nakuza in a Nakuza deck.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could just choose not to play that deck.
So you're saying I should take another? That's another one of my decks I need to take apart for you, Andy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Fuck. I was expecting that. All right, shit.
No, I don't mind Nakuza at all. No, you're right. She's
brutal.
She's very cool, and yeah, she's got a lot of cool applications. We're slightly running out of time. Did you want to quickly?
All right, cool. We can do Commander another time if you want to.
I think Commander probably deserves its own little episode.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Let's do that then. Let's do that. Let's do a separate one for Commander because there was a lot to talk about in this set.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Looking at what I want to mention on the Commander part, I think a lot of it will actually have more to talk about than what I expected to. I don't think it's going to be a breeze past. So yeah, the only thing I'll say about them is I think value-wise, I think they're quite worth it. I think they're quite interesting. Reprints are good.
This is the first time.
That's my bubble.
Yeah, this is the first time that I'm looking into getting all 5. I've never done that for any of the other sets. And I think this is the first time.
There's a cycle in there I think that's very, very, very strong. That free cycle, I think, very strong. But I also like the fact that they tied it directly into the set. I think it's going to help sell both because not only are you buying cards from the set, and then you've also got a Commander product that directly is supported by it. So if you just bought some standard cards, you did a couple of drafts, you went, how can I flex this more? Oh, I'll buy the Commander deck and add all your cards to it. Boom, awesome, sorted. You've got your first Commander deck, and it's probably really sweet. Other way around, if you buy one of the Commander decks and you're looking for some way to spice it up, oh, I've got all these cards directly coming out in the exact same set at the exact same time, and they're going to be cheaper because they're not hard to get hold of because they're being released now. I think it's very clever.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. It's a little bit hard to track with spoilers as they're coming out and trying to talk about. So obviously we play a little bit of limited, we play a little bit of draft, and then we also play Commander mainly. If you're only a standard or limited player, having these Commander products coming out at the same time is maybe a bit of a head fuck for you because you're just going, I can't play with any of these cards.
Yeah, it only worked to the fact they managed to fit it all into the weekends, and obviously isolation meant that we need something to be doing, so I'm very glad that they did. I think when all the cards look like they could be from the set, beyond things like, the Devour card or whatever like that, I think that was maybe a faux pas because I think you can't just be going, oh, so is this? Oh, I've got this really cool mutate card. It's going to be in standard. And you build a deck and you realize, oh, no, that was the mutate card spoiled for Commander. Oh, great. Awesome. So, yeah, I think that can lead to some real bads. And I think the problem there is that one of the decks from the set had specifically the Ikoria mechanic as its main mechanic. So I think that's maybe maybe that was foolish. But, I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. All right then, guys. So that was our little breakdown of Ikoria, the main set of Ikoria, all the mechanics and bits and bobs. Obviously, the set isn't even fully spoiled yet. At time of recording, we still have half a day's worth of spoilers to come out, so there'll be lots of discussions. There'll be probably a lot more things to talk about in future episodes as far as the Mel and the Vorthos combining goes.
I think it's like 90-ish cards left to go, and a lot of them are going to be common. So the big splashy effects we've seen 99% of the big splashy effects. There's a couple still to come, but most of it's just the rest of the filler. But obviously we'll have to talk about that in length next week.
Indeed. By the time this episode comes out, obviously all the cards will be released because it will probably come out a day after recording. So hit us up on Twitter at mtflavouring and tell us your thoughts on the set. Was there anything that you thought that we missed that's nice, big and splashy? Is there anything that we liked that you want us to tell us to fuck off and die over? Because people have some strong opinions.
I was going to say you want to disagree with anything. That's so much better.
People are hyped up about this set, dude. Like, they've got some...
Yeah, Boad. Fuck off and die.
Let us know. Our email is mtflavouring@gmail.com. My personal Twitter is @AndyManface. Nathan, yours is...
At the Fox in the Moon.
At the Fox in the Moon.
I promise to maybe eventually be more active. We'll see.
So guys, I have read through The Sundered Bond by Django Wexler, and Nathan, you're starting reading it today, I believe. Is that right?
Mine's literally open in front of me. Yeah.
Excellent, cool. So by the time that we will be next recording, or at least doing our lore episodes on monsters and humans, we will have read through the book and we will be referencing it. So if you want to read the book before you listen to the podcast, I suggest getting on it. It is now available on different ebook platforms. I'm not quite sure where it is available everywhere.
Google Play was on discount, so if you've got a Google account, from there it was a £1 discount down to like $2.80 or something like that.
Oh, nice.
I'd highly recommend it, and you can read it straight through your browser. You don't have to worry about having a Kindle or anything like that. So. Yeah, get it on, guys. It's I'm not going to say anything whether it's good or bad or not. All I will say is that I enjoyed it. But yeah, as with any art form, it's kind of subjective. And I think that's such a weighted way to say it.
Well, I'm not
going to say anything about it, but yeah.
Some people haven't. Some people have had some really strong opinions against it. I think that's probably just the lesson.
Shocking that Magic players have strong opinions about things.
Yeah, I guess.
In this time where we're sat at home with nothing better to do than argue over base semantics.
Sure. Well, guys, anyway. stay safe, wash your hands, and as always, this has been Magic the Flavouring.
We'll see you soon.